Hello, welcome to the binaries. My name is Taha Kadado, and today our topic is Introduction to SQL. We'll go ahead and start our presentation, and we'll go over the agenda for this topic today. We will cover today first the prerequisite for this presentation. Next, we will define what is SQL, and we will be talking about the ANSI SQL, which is really the standards of SQL. And then we will talk about the two different languages in SQL, which is the DDL, data definition language, and the DML, data manipulation language. And we will go to some examples on a live database. And then we will conclude and go over the acronyms used in this presentation. So let's get started. The prerequisite for this presentation is you must be familiar with database concepts. If you are not, then I suggest you go to the tutorial by the binaries on Introduction to Databases. Because for this presentation we talk about tables, we talk about relational databases, and it is important that you go over and you have some understanding what is a table, what is a database, and what are the objects of the database. The second prerequisite is you must have, you really don't have to, but it is good if you would have a relational database installed that you can practice on. If not, again, go and look at the tutorial, the SQL tutorial by the binaries on installing and setting up Postgres SQL. You can use Oracle, you can use MySQL, SQL Server, Sybase, any other database if you wish, but in this example here we are going to be using Postgres. So moving on, what is SQL? SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It's pronounced as SQL. It is the standard language that we use to communicate with relational databases, often referred to as RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. A little bit of a history on this. In 1970, Dr. Codd published a paper about relational model for data, and that was accepted and as a result, later on, IBM developed the standard query, the structured query language to work with Codd's model. And as it gained more popularity, in 1986, ANSI, which is the American National Standard Institute, they founded standards for SQL. To continue with some definition of SQL, most organizations use SQL to manage their information and databases and reports. An example, if you are a student at school, your information, where you live, your name, your date of birth, as well as your grades are kept in databases. Governments, they store lots of information in databases for public information, employees, information about cities, projects, all the affairs, they store it in databases. Hospitals keep information in databases. Scientists, they keep information on data, diseases, astronomy, animals, earthquakes, what have you, in databases. So databases is in our everyday life. Now, what is ANSI SQL? You probably right now have an idea that ANSI is American National Standard Institute, which really is, as SQL started getting popularity, the ANSI Institute, they started putting some standards so that the industry and the commercial products will have some common language that can be cross-used across all platforms. The advantages of learning the ANSI is you can use it on any relational database to comply that complies with ANSI standards. Which means if you learn the ANSI SQL, you can work with any database, whether it is you work with any database that is compliant with ANSI standard. And most commercial databases such as Oracle, SQL Server, Sybase, um, um, Informix, all those, they comply with the ANSI standard. SQL consists of two main languages, the DDL and DML, and we will be talking more in more details and give some examples of what's a DDL and what is a DML next here. DDL is data definition language. DDL is what we use to manage database objects. Manage meaning how to define, create, change. We do that using DDL. So objects, database objects such as tables, views, indexes, triggers, functions, users, all those objects have to be defined or managed by DDL. DDL also is used to give rights, manage security on a database, meaning you can give certain users the ability to view data in a certain table, but some other users may have to be able to update it, and some other users may have to be able to look at it, update it, and also be able to delete from it. So that is what we mean by manage rights. And so the DDL consists of create, drop, alter, and grant commands. Those are the commands that are mostly used in the DDL. And we will see some examples shortly, and actually right now. Let's go right now to our database. And if you had done Postgres based on the tutorial we had done before, based on the prerequisite that I just talked about, the way to go and access Postgres is by going to the Start menu and go to All Programs, and then find Postgres and look for PG Admin Tree. And then once you get here, you will see that you have something like this, Postgres 992. Double click on it and open the plus sign so you can have databases here. Open that up further and click on the database here that is called Postgres. And once you are here, once you have it highlighted and you clicked on it, come up to the top panel here and open a SQL query window. So now we are in the SQL query window within Postgres. I'm using a virtual machine here to show you how you get into Postgres on Windows, but I have the very same thing here on my Mac. So I will be doing most of my examples on the Mac, as a matter of fact. To go ahead and talk about DDL, we are going to go ahead and create a table. Before we create a table, and again, you can think of a table as a spreadsheet, as a sheet or a spreadsheet or an Excel sheet. The difference is every column in a database have to be defined. You have to tell what type you want it to be. For the sake of this example or this tutorial, we are going to stick to 4 data types. And as a matter of fact, majority of applications, 90% of the applications used in practical life, you will not have to use more than those data types. And those data types are characters, often referred to as character varying. N is what is the limit on that particular field that you're defining. You can call it character varying or you can call it varchar, same thing. And again, N is how wide you want to be your column. The other type that we are going to be talking about is integer, and that would be an integer with, it's a number without decimal. It can be positive, can be negative, but it does not have any decimal. And the next one is numeric. Numeric has decimal. When you define it, you put the precision and the scale, meaning if you define a column as numeric 52, that means you can store a number with 3 main numbers and 2 digits of decimal precision. And then, of course, there is a date. And date is defined as year, month, and day. So, for the sake of this example, I'm going to go ahead and copy this definition and I'm going to paste it here. So we're creating a table called employee. This table has an ID, which is an integer. It has first name, another column called first name, and that is varchar 10, meaning I can store information on it up to 10 digits. 10 characters, I mean. And the last name is the same way. It is a varchar of 10, only 10 characters. And then the date of birth, its type of date, and the salary of this employee. And I have here 10 digits with 2 decimals. I'm going to highlight this, and I will hit the green arrow right here, which says execute query. And I want you to watch the bottom panel right here and see the message you're going to get when you hit go. You will see that query returns successfully with no results. That's normal. We are all good. I'm going to come here and I will go about doing one more thing here. So far I created a table. I want to create a user next. I'm going to create a user called Andy, and the password for him is Andy123. Here we go. So now I have 2 objects. One is a table, the other one is a role or a user called Andy. I can go up here, I can drop the table. I'm not going to do it, but if I drop the table will be gone. I have to define it again. So get rid of this. I can come here and I can grant select on employee to Andy. What that means is Andy can only select from the table. He cannot delete, he cannot update, he cannot. Right there. So this is, I created the table, created a role, and I gave some permissions here. And we will later on understand what the select mean when we talk about DML. So bear with me. Going back to the presentation, now we have covered pretty much the create, the drop, and the grant. Alter is a way to change the table or change an object, and we will talk about that maybe in a different tutorial. The next thing we want to talk about is DML, which stands for Data Manipulation Language. This is the second piece of the SQL. This is the way to manage data within um, tables in Postgres or in any database. So DML allows you to add, change, delete, or retrieve data from tables. It consists of insert, update, delete, and select commands. We're going to go right now again and look at some examples. If you know that we have created, as you've seen, we've created a table called employee. Right now we're going to go in and insert some data in there. I'm going to copy some things that I've defined ahead of time, and I'm going to come here and paste. Keep in mind that in this interface here, the only things that will run is the one I highlight. Well, once I highlight something and I hit it, only that piece will run. The top parts here will never run. If I hit the green arrow without highlighting anything, everything will run. I don't want to do that. So here, in this section here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some data, insert some data into my employee table. Let's go over the syntax here before we run it and talk about it for a sec. We're inserting into employee, and we're inserting, filling in the ID, the first name, the last name, the date of birth, the salary. We're filling them in with the values of 1, and then 1 corresponds to the ID, mark corresponds to the first name, red corresponds to the last name, and that date, 1960 or 101, corresponded to birth, and the 60,000 is the salary. And I'm going to be doing this a few times. Notice for the name, first name and last name, and the date, you have single quotes around it, whereas the ID and the salary does not. And that's because the syntax or the rules is if you're inserting anything but numbers, you really need to put it between quotes for it to be correct and to be inserted. So I'm going to go ahead, highlight this, and I will run it. Everything went fine, it inserted. Now that we've inserted, let's talk about the second piece or another command of DML in database. Let's do select star from employee. What I'm saying here is select star, meaning all the columns from the employee table. Let's highlight this and see what do we see. We see here all of those information we just inserted. So now when we covered the insert, we covered the select. Let's talk about update. Let's, for example, say we want to give Mary an increase in salary. So I'm going to update employee table, set salary equals, let's make it 70,000, where ID equals 2. I'm going to update the employee table. I will set the salary column to 70,000, but where the ID is 2. If I don't put ID equal 2, it will update all of the table. If I just run this like that, it will run every single row in the table. We don't want to do that. Maybe you want to do it, but this is not my intent. I just want to update this row right there. It shows right now 55,000. When I'm done updating it, if I select again right now from the employee, it should be 70,000 for Mary. Notice now the rows came in and ordered, 2 is at the bottom. We can fix that by saying select from employee, order by ID, right there. And now it's all ordered. Let's talk about delete. Delete from employee where, let's just say, pretend that John quit, where ID equals to 3. Put a semicolon. Oops. Let's do this. And now we basically deleted John, who had ID 3. So you select again and he's gone. So we don't have John, our employee, or in our company anymore. So now we've covered delete, update, select, insert, and that pretty much wraps up our DML. So in summary, SQL is a very powerful language that has been around for over 40 years, since the 70s. SQL is a powerful language in working with databases to manage data and produce reports. It can be embedded in most programming languages like Java, Python, C, C++, PHP, Perl, all that good languages. Most organizations, they use SQL to manage their information. In the future, we are going to be talking about more advanced topics in SQL, more advanced objects. We'll be talking about how to do fancy things in selects, and how do we can we create multiple tables, and maybe how to create functions and what have you. Um, so in conclusion, here we're going to go over the acronyms used in our SQL introduction. SQL is Structured Query Language. ANSI is the American National Standard Institute. RDBMS is Relational Database Management System. DDL, Data Definition Language. DML, Data Manipulation Language, and both of those, DDL, DML, are part of SQL. Thank you again for for your attention, and we'll see you next. Thank you.